Hey everybody, how you doing? Tom Barnes here. Stories from the 78. I'm of a certain age where I look back on movies that filmed in Chicago and I romanticize about them. I'm talking about movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Adventures in Babysitting, Blues Brothers, what have you. There's a generation a little bit before mine that romanticizes the subculture that is the pool hall scene in Chicago. And maybe not romanticize is the right word, but it definitely shines a light on the pool hall scene in Chicago. And if you're not familiar with the movie, this is a big time movie back in the 80s. This is with Paul Newman and Tom Cruise about the pool hall scene in and around Chicago and everything that goes on with it. Now, that might deal with one aspect of the scene, but there's another aspect, and it's these amateurs that try to play in like this tournament to get to the big tournament of all tournaments. And my friend Dylan captured all of this beautifully in his new book called Going Rackless. Let me get the name of the exact title. It's Going Rackless, Chicago's Amateur Pool Players and the Quest for Glory in the Biggest Tournament in the World. So very cool. I welcome Dylan now to the show. Dylan, how are you?
Hey, great. Thank you very much for the interest in talking about my book.
Absolutely. When I think of the pool hall scene in Chicago, I don't really get reminded of many things outside of like the movie Color of Money that was like a movie from the 80s. But when you drive like on Milwaukee Avenue and Jefferson Park, there's like legit pool halls, like old school pool halls that you have to like walk up the stairs and it's above or what have you.
Right.
But then it made me think there used to be pool halls everywhere in the city, and there still are, and there's still much a subculture.
It's like one of those things I feel like where everyone, of course, knows what pool is and has this vision of a pool hall and pool player probably in their mind, but exactly doesn't know just how rich that culture still is if you know where to look, or even if you don't, because like you said, you could very easily happen across pool halls. But yeah, certainly a much more or an ongoing robust culture of pool in Chicago for sure.
So, for folks that are new to this and new to the game of pool, in terms of they just might see it at a bar, that, let's say they're playing softball and their team is hanging out at the bar, they've had a couple of drinks, and somebody says, let's go play pool.
Right.
I think a lot of that might be it for a lot of people as far as the casual Chicagoan, on the north side. I'm not speaking of all over the city. I'm speaking on the north side, and there's
Mhm.
obviously much more to the city than the north side, but that's like the people that I have hung out with in most of my life because I lived on the north side. That's where you see the pool, and there's only like a pool table, one or two pool tables max, and they're usually at older bars. They're not at the newer bars,
Right.
except if you like go to like pinstripes or something like that. And then they're like in the sad bastard room that nobody goes into. So it's
Yeah.
so bizarre. But
Yeah.
if you could just educate me a little bit on the pool hall scene here in Chicago and why there's so much history and why it's so important.
Sure. I mean, definitely, most people's experience with the game today is exactly as you described. You're out with your friends, you see a table, an open table, let's shoot around. Everyone's generally pretty bad, or at least if you're remotely good, it really stands out
Uh-huh.
among your friends for sure. And that's what somebody had, said to me one time that I thought was kind of interesting that, pool is a sport that everybody plays like once a year. You find it, you just happen across a table. Everyone knows the general mechanics of the game. So, everyone at least has that experience with it. And
Mhm.
then as far as the actual pool scene goes, the the scene that I explored in Going Rackless, my book, is the amateur pool scene, specifically through the American Pool Players Association, which is a national league that has leagues all over the country. Chicago's really dense with APA leagues, and so those leagues are people of all different skill levels. It requires all different skill levels to make up a team. And so you have people who are just starting out. You have retired, kind of like old school shooters who played in some of the more hardcore bars, which do still exist. That that's that again that vision of a pool player that a lot of people probably have. That's where they play, where there is money at stakes. It's a little way less sympathetic towards newcomers and stuff like that. So yeah, there's just depending on where you look, there's a game for every level of skill for sure.
Yeah, the term pool shark just popped in my head, like people prey on the people who are like, the newbie to the city who's like they looking it up on Instagram and they find like the pool hall place
Yep.
and they're like, oh, let's go, man. And the pool sharks are like, oh, we're just gonna destroy them. We will
Right.
lure them in
Yeah.
thinking that they're good, and then we're gonna just take all their money.
And generally, in this APA league, there's established rules, so everyone kind of knows what's going on. But I did, over the course of hanging out in these halls and talking with pool players, I did see a classic hustle take place, which was really cool to witness in real life. One guy insulting another guy. All right, let's go, and just clean him out of over $800 in about 15 minutes.
Well, if that
And
isn't Chicago, I don't know what is.
yeah, and it was during St. Patrick's Day, so everyone was decked out in the green and the beads, and it was just, at first there was a bit of tension in the air, but by the end of it, even though these guys had lost a bunch of money, it was still like everybody's clapping each other on the back at the end of it. But it was very cool to see just like a straight up like hustle take place.
So, for folks who are wondering, where would you say are some of the best pool halls in the city? Like what part of the city? Where can people go to see, just like old school pool, or play it in a way that's not like the sad bastard room at Pinstripes, or
Right.
fighting over one table at a bar that's an iconic bar, but they only have one. Like, because I know there
Mm-hmm.
are actual pool halls still exist in the city. Like, I keep thinking of the movie Bull Durham, because there's a scene in Bull Durham that's in a pool hall, and it's just a bunch of, it's just pool tables as far as you can see. Is there something like that in Chicago?
There's a spot that kind of stands above the rest, and that's called Chris's Billiards. And that is part of the color of money was based on there, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mhm.
It's been a while since I looked at that, but in any case, that's like the quintessential pool hall. I mean, it used to be a meat packing facility, so it's on the second floor of this building. It's still the lights are really dim. There's still like the plastic, like butcher plastic in between the doorways, and like it just it's the people playing there are kind of just disheveled, drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes. It's just like a really cool place to be.
Is that the one on
And
Milwaukee Avenue I'm thinking of?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's and so that is where they have APA leagues too, so that the atmosphere lightens up a little bit on weekends. But I mean, if you go there any given night, long, well into the night, it's like that's the real deal for sure.
Ah, yeah. Is that one type of like old school, or are there similar places like that sprinkled throughout the city?
I mean, there are definitely some sprinkled throughout the city. I mean, I don't, different players will probably have different preferences,
Sure,
but
sure.
I would say that one kind of stands out as one of the more quote unquote like authentic old school bars. But
Got it.
then there are, halls of varying degrees of like dinginess, but not of the same, has the same like historical character necessarily. So like Nick's Billiards Academy is just in a shopping plaza, but it still has, kind of like a floor of tables and definitely some um not just people coming in to shoot for fun, some deeper layers of pool happening there for sure.
Right on. And you capture the ethos of that in the book Going Rackless. And you mention the glory of playing in the biggest tournament in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
what are these players trying to do, like these amateurs? What is the goal that they're trying to do in this biggest tournament? Where is this all happening and all that fun stuff?
So there are again the American Pool Players Association amateur leagues. They have three leagues in the north side of Chicago, and then a bunch of leagues in the suburbs and south side as well. But my experience was mostly with three leagues in northern central Chicago, and so that was those players all compete. Of course, within their league to be the
Mhm.
champions of their league. The top teams of each season all play together at the end of the year in a tournament called Citywides, and that determines the best team of that league. Sometimes the leagues play each other, so that's the best local champ or the best local team, and then so the winners of the citywides all play or win a chance. The big prize is winning a chance to go play in the biggest tournament in the world, which is in Las Vegas, and those are the winners of all of the leagues from around the country, all competing against each other in this massive tournament that's almost 2 weeks long. 1 week for eight ball, 1 week for 9 ball, more or less.
And you follow 4 teams, is that right? In your
Four
book?
teams, yep. 4 teams, three just regular teams, and one of the teams in the women's league.
And when you are writing and following these people and you're writing your notes down, I imagine you see things that perhaps you wouldn't even think about when you were thinking about writing this book, unwritten codes, running the table, like all these things. Is there something that pops out where you're just like, when you witness, you're like, oh, okay, did not know that.
I mean, yeah, and it was a working on this was like a balance of me trying to kind of sit back and observe and just like you said, kind of take in some things and just read the scene and see some stuff I might not otherwise have known about, while also really wanting to just ask the players like a million questions about what they're going on. And so I tried to strike that balance of staying out of their hair while also learning a lot about their perspectives. But I would say, I mean, just even watching, learning the mechanics of the game for someone, and I should clarify, like I'm not a pool player.
That was my next question.
No, like I'm one of those people that like, you end up somewhere and you shoot around and maybe you're better than a couple of your friends, but that's about it. That's about where my skill level is. So, where was I going with this?
The unwritten rules or the things that you might have
Oh, right.
seen
Sorry,
while observing all.
So yeah,
That's
so
okay.
seeing the actual people who understand the game explain it to you and seeing how they shoot with all the different strategies and stuff all coming together, that was really impressive and just helped me understand the game on a much deeper level. But also, I mean, I think the just endless amounts of like accessorizing your pool stuff and just filing the tip just right, the type of connector you use on your cue, there's just an infinite amount of variation that you can put into what seems like fairly straightforward equipment. And so I think that was pretty
Interesting.
impressive, just how deep the
So it
world
does
of
make a
a pool
difference.
cue goes. Yeah.
So that is a huge difference for them, as much as a golfer and their golf clubs, or a hockey player and a stick, or a baseball bat.
I mean, obviously anyone who's really good can pick up any stick and still be certainly better than me. But I mean, once you're really dialed in with the equipment that means a lot to you, then yeah, it can make a lot of difference for sure.
And within your research and in hanging out with these guys and ladies,
Mm-hmm.
what is it about Chicago that separates it from other cities, perhaps? Like, and you mentioned like the rich history of pool in Chicago. Why has it had such a rich history? What's the draw? Is it our weather? How we have crappy winters and there's nothing to do but bowling and go pool and
Yeah.
going to the pool hall, or what is it to you? What do you see?
Well, I mean, first of all, just a vibe of getting off a train and walking to a pool hall and under the streetlights when it's kind of like drizzling out and going to some dank hall like that. That just something about that whole atmosphere really.
Very much like a day like today.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. And so that just this setting, just this massive city with this deep history and personality, I mean, it was just perfect for that. But also, I mean, that's based a lot in reality as well. That even before Chicago was a city itself, on the grounds that would become Chicago, there were already pool halls. And then when all
Really?
the different people, a lot of immigrant communities coming in or forming to do a bunch of labor jobs, you had these rough and tumble guys populating all of these pool halls. And so that kind of just gave rise to this history of a hard, a tougher side of the game. And then on the other side of that, you get like social organizations, like youth organizations, who start like youth leagues, and that serves a similar purpose, and maybe helping someone's upward trajectory through life, but in a much more sort of like affirming way, I suppose. And so you have just this different pockets all over the city playing pool, and so that just lays the groundwork for a pretty rich history of hustlers, and that's one thing that Chicago is really known for, is just all of these personalities, not known only locally, but in the broader lore of pool, that really helped put Chicago on the map. But and then another thing about Chicago that people outside of the city will say is that, somebody was like, why there's no major pool tournaments in Chicago? Because they all play a real dirty game. And so
What do you mean by
that,
dirty game?
like, just, I mean, out cheating, hustling, like, just no, just people don't want to come there, and like, and like other cities might have more bigger tournaments more regularly, like that. From what I understand, hasn't been really a thing in Chicago in a long time because of perhaps some of the reputation that its players gave
So
to
it's
the
the
Chicago.
players. It's not necessarily like the tournament being fixed or something like that. It's about the players just knowing
Sorry,
how.
yes, I should clarify. Right, it's the just style of play that you really had to be a committed player to want to do stuff to do
You,
that, and so I think that's kind of, yeah, that's
you know,
giving
it's funny
Chicago.
though. Those same people who say, "Oh, I'm not. We're not going to host anything in Chicago because they do this or that." Well, some of those players obviously play well enough to go and kick their, you know what, in other
Right,
places that are not in the city of Chicago. So I
right.
mean, it's like hating the Yankees and not wanting to go play at Yankee Stadium.
I mean, and every region has its own version of the game, or its own, fairly rich history. It's just all of the Chicago's history of pool is tied to the broader aspects of the city's history in a way that might not be quite as quite as intertwined elsewhere. So that was really cool to see.
That's interesting. I never would have
Mhm.
thought that. And the style of play in Chicago, perhaps more aggressive than other places, or maybe some more trickery involved. It's kind of a little bit of what you're saying. Am I getting that from
Yeah,
our
and
style with our reputation as a city?
right, and but also, I mean, there were a number of sports equipment manufacturers in the city historically. So you had, like Brunswick, for example, made these,
Yeah.
pool tables for all of all different price points, but they just had this massive operation here, and they sponsored some of these youth leagues, or some of the like swankier halls, because there was a point where pool was like played in like these really opulent, like almost looked like theaters, with arched ceilings and just white gloved butlers and stuff like that. So that other side of pool, where you have these like sort of tuxedo clad gentlemen playing, that also was part of the city as well, and that was more of a product of, sorry, that was closely aligned with some of these sports manufacturing businesses that were there. So that helped grow the game locally as well. And some may say that even those tournaments were a bit suspect in how they played out, but that's just, all sides of the game were very well represented locally.
Yeah. And I feel like back then too, I would venture anywhere games that were a little suspect. Even baseball had the 1919 Black Sox, although it
Yep.
did take place in Chicago, so not really making a great argument on that one. But
And that's what people said, because pool had this really negative reputation of it being played by drunkards for money, and in these dank halls. But and that some people said that it was the nature of pool itself led to that sort of behavior. But then, as you mentioned, of course, it was the uh, squeaky clean baseball, that, or the all American baseball, that proved to
mm,
be a lot more more widespread cheating. And what did somebody say that I quoted in the book? Like, it was more demoralizing than like World War I or something. Like, just this absurd comparison. But all that to say, yes, I think people eventually realize, like, pool is a game like any other. It's how and where it's played that might impact it. But there's a lot of good aspects too.
yeah, you mentioned the opulent side of it, and as you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about the opulent side of it, I kept picturing like the Florence Hotel in the Pullman neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
because of the opulence of the Pullman neighborhood in its heyday, and the Florence Hotel, which was just this magnificent space. I can see like the bourgeois clientele like thumbing their nose to the workers of the Pullman rail cars and not letting them drink in the town of Pullman because it was a dry town town and making
Mm-hmm.
them go to like the tide houses down the street where the Schlitz tide houses were. And then they would turn around in their room that's opulent and be served alcohol and play a game of pool.
Right.
It
Yeah.
just sounds, it just, it's interesting. There's so much history. I mean, I'm so fascinated by this end of it because, like you said, or have we, as we've spoken, pool is just not like in the mainstream of sports when you
Mm-hmm.
talk to the general people, like it's basketball and baseball, hockey and football. Obviously, we're in it right now. But it's such a thing that so many of us can partake in, like
Mm-hmm.
most of us will never or have never played football with pads on, right? It's just not a thing. But anybody can figure out how to at least attempt to play pool, right? It's like bowling.
Right.
You can try it. You might not be good at it, and it's not to say that it's easy, but I imagine you seeing all the different levels of athletes that play this game of pool. Were you surprised by the level of athleticism and what goes into the thinking and the strategery of a game of pool as you kept diving further and further into the subculture?
I was definitely surprised at how seriously people took it, in the sense that, even this is an amateur league. I mean, people genuinely really wanted to learn and became students of the game and sought out skilled, experienced players to teach them, and really, in some cases, bought a table of their own to practice at home. And so I think that the just that level of whatever it is about the game, someone found that it spoke to them, and they just dove all in on learning more about the game. And that's what a quote that had really stuck out with me was, somebody was like, when you talk to any of us in this league, the first thing we say is we're pool players. Like, before we say what our profession is or whatever, whatever else sort of identifying thing we might associate with ourselves. That's what they found, personally, they identify with really closely.
Such a cool little peek behind the curtain that is the pool hall culture in Chicago, alive and well and still rich with history and a little lore and a little superstition, I'm sure. What was your favorite thing out of all of this? Because you said you were a bit basic amateur player, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were going the once a year guy, kind of like me.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite thing in doing it? Was it like the research and hanging out in the pool halls? Was it just talking to the people, or was it just reflecting all of it and writing it down?
I mean, the writing itself can be a bit agonizing sometimes, and not always like the most fun part. So that's why I gravitate towards nonfiction. I do really like to write, but I mean, also just, yes, being able to go places and talk to people and go through archives and things like that is why I do this type of writing specifically. But also, I mean, I being able to follow, the book follows four teams across 2 years, mostly focusing on the first year, but a little bit of follow up on the second year. And so being able to speak with people over the course of such a long time was really cool to see the kind of arcs of their pool story, how they've gotten better, how their teams have progressed, and when all of these teams make it to Vegas, just what that seeing them outside of Chicago and playing in a new setting and just feeling that excitement. And I've again spent so much time with them that I felt like, not like I was part of their team, but at least like very invested in not only their success, but just like them being there and like feeling how cool it was to have earned this at a game they like with their friends, because a lot of these people have been on the same team together for years, and so that's in some cases their closest friend group. So to be able to embark on this thing together, to this ridiculous pool tournament with 14,000 players at it, and acres and literal acres of pool tables, it was just almost surreal to see that in real life. But all that to say, be able to follow teams across all these ups and downs was a really fun experience, and to see how they react to the different things that come their way.
And you mentioned that they would most undoubtedly introduced themselves as pool players before
Hmm.
they actually said what they did. But I think a thing that maybe we haven't really hit on just yet, most of these people, if not all of them, have day jobs, right? And they're doing their thing during the day and then they're doing this at night, as like people who work and then play in a softball league or
Absolutely.
whatever, right? So like, but this is like, in Chicago, it's almost like you can't dick around and do this, like, because you're just going to get eaten alive by the talent and the push to be
Hmm.
good and to know your skill. But as far as the culture, like, when do these guys go and play? Like, what time of the night are they heading out to the pool hall? Like, when does it get busy and interesting where you're like, oh yeah, this is good stuff, it's great theater?
Yeah, the APA leagues generally started at 7 or 7:30, and so that's the city pool hall, which is in the West Loop, where it's kind of almost like the unofficial headquarters of the Chicago Central APA League. That all kicked off about 7:30, and so you just see all these people descending with their little quiver like bags that have their pool cues, and if I would get there early, just like all of a sudden it would be packed out with 100 plus pool players getting ready to go. And some people would come from working in the loop. There'd be lawyers and bankers and just white collar people. There'd be people coming from construction jobs, bartenders, just all walks of life descending on this pool hall. Like I said, you're close, in many cases, very close friends with a lot of your team. So it's always good to just be able to hang out and have a couple drinks and shoot pool while also, um, like I said, it's an amateur league. Everyone knows that more than half the players on the team are probably like pretty bad, in the broad sense of talent with the game, but everyone's there to learn, and the teams that take it seriously really invest in helping each other out and getting better. And so you have just again people of all ages, backgrounds, professions, whatever, working together as a unit, and while they're just having fun and hanging out. So it's a cool balance of really taking it seriously and really investing in your success and presence in the team, while also just having this fun, fairly low stakes, but still very exciting game, competition to take part in.
Yeah, and it sounds like fun. Sounds so uniquely Chicago in the way that you mentioned construction workers,
Mm-hmm.
lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
probably teachers and, financial guys, like all of this, all walking to a pool hall or a bar that has a bunch of tables or what have you, and hang out and play the game they love and
Mm-hmm.
just, as they say, shoot the shit, right? Like
Yeah,
it kind of is
absolutely.
that way. For folks that want to learn a little bit more about what you do and where they can purchase the book, is there a spot are you doing any signings coming up, or do you have a place you want to direct people to buy the book, or should they just go online?
We are definitely very interested in setting up some sort of reading or signing, ideally with some of the players in the books, to do like, in the book, excuse me, to do like a Q&A panel to get a much more, they could certainly speak for their own interest in the game better than I could. But so hopefully, all that to say, some sort of event or signing will take place at a pool hall. But in the meantime, it's available through the University of Illinois Press. They have a really cool catalog of books, so not only mine, but books on a variety of fascinating
Yeah.
topics. And so that's the best place I would recommend right now. I'm have a box of copies coming my way, but in the meantime, just through the university would be great.
Great. Well, Dylan, thanks for talking with me and sharing a little bit of the knowledge of your journey that is Going Rackless. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was, and I just my gal and I, even though the book has long been out and I'm not following these teams anymore, we went to the tournament in Vegas this year just for fun and to hand out flyers for this book, and the excitement like has not gone away, because you just find a team that you for whatever reason are like interested in, and you just follow them to the top. And we watched this team who, we didn't know anybody on the team, but we were really invested in them in the finals. So if anyone gets a chance to go to this tournament, it's really a lot of fun. And the book really
Yeah,
goes
it's
into a lot of detail why. So yeah, please check it out.
fantastic.